Good evening, America. Welcome to N3 Prime Time. I'm Angie Ress, and boy, do we have a power-packed show for you tonight. Gary Franchi has been working overtime to give you the real news that mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. First up, Tucker Carlson sounds the alarm on the fate of America. Could we be headed for assassination plots and war? Second, the world is prepping for Trump's return. What do global leaders know that we don't? Third, Trump calls out Biden, warning that America is turning into a banana republic. Fourth, is Mitch McConnell fit for office? Shocking footage suggests maybe not. And fifth, get this, Biden's 100,000 vanity splurge while America burns. But that's not all. Later, we'll dive into the comments section to hear what you think. And don't miss our Looking at You segment, spotlighting someone causing quite the stir. Gary, over to you.
Good evening. Welcome to N3 Primetime. Tonight, we're not just bringing you news, we're sounding the alarm bell for every American who values liberty, truth, and common sense. We've got Tucker Carlson issuing stark warnings about the very fabric of this great nation. We've got world leaders preparing for the return of Donald Trump. Why? Because even they seem to know something is amiss in Washington. We're looking at the ongoing politicization of justice under Biden's reign. Our own former president warns that we're sliding into a banana republic. We're also questioning Mitch McConnell's cognitive health and what it means for conservative leadership. And speaking of health, we're scrutinizing Joe Biden's alleged $100,000 splurge on plastic surgery. These stories matter, folks, because they are shaping the very world that your children will inherit. Now, speaking of inheritance, let's talk about your financial future. Just like Tucker Carlson warns, if a country is speeding towards calamity, your dollars are rapidly losing their value. Since the 70s, the U.S. dollar has lost 85% of its value. It's like watching your house burn while Biden gets a facelift. With elections looming, government printing presses might go into overdrive, but guess what withstands inflation? Gold. Secure your future by investing with Noble Gold Investments. Act now and get one of these, a free quarter-ounce gold standard coin. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com or give them a call at 877-646-5347. And even if you're not investing, give them a call and tell them thank you for sponsoring this program. Angie, what other stories are on the docket for tonight's episode?
Thanks, Gary. Let me tell you, you're not wanting to miss a single second of tonight's N3 Prime Time. Picture this, even Democrats are doubting if Biden's got enough gas left in the tank for round two. And believe me, the White House isn't helping their case. Hold on to your hats because the stage is set for the second GOP presidential primary debate. We're looking at a clash of conservative titans, folks. Meanwhile, a Chicago news crew becomes the news. This isn't fake. It's failure of law and order. Then we've got health alerts, not on your smartphone, but in the Senate and the White House. Are these men fit to lead? And finally, why are profits at Dick's Sporting Goods plummeting like a poorly thrown football? Is Biden dropping the ball on crime? Stick around for our comment section where we share what's on your mind and Looking at You, where we spotlight a mover and shaker you need to know about. Gary, what's up first?
If you've ever felt that tingle on the back of your neck, that sixth sense that something is profoundly wrong, then brace yourself. Tonight we have a special report that you can't afford to miss. Tucker Carlson, one of conservatism's most trusted voices, has just unleashed an urgent warning that should send shockwaves to the very core of this great nation. And trust me, you don't want to miss our final thought. From the haunting forecast of an assassination plot against former President Donald Trump to the chilling possibility of war with Russia, we're delving into these critical issues that could very well decide the fate of America. So stay tuned, stay vigilant, and keep those eyes wide open. Our republic and future may very well depend on it. So, this is an absolutely critical episode. You know, when Tucker Carlson sounds the alarm, you should be paying attention. And today is not just a firecracker, not just a loudspeaker, but what can only be described as a siren warning of impending doom. Tucker Carlson, a trusted conservative voice, has presented a forewarning that borders on apocalyptic regarding former President Donald Trump. He urges that the unceasing vendetta against Trump might escalate into something as severe as assassination, and additionally hints at a future war with Russia. Now, let me tell you, this is no ordinary story, and we have some video clips you need to see. So starting off, it's as clear as day. The battle against Donald Trump is reaching new heights. A grand jury in Fulton County has seen fit to indict Trump on racketeering charges relating to his stance on the 2020 election results in Georgia. The political odyssey against this man is just surreal, from protests to media onslaughts to dual impeachments and now indictments. But as Tucker Carlson eludes. None of these maneuvers are diminishing Trump's influence. It's actually quite the opposite. It's his popularity that's surging. Now, Tucker went on the Adam Carolla show where he drew a startling conclusion, and folks, this is heavy stuff. He said we're speeding towards assassination, obviously, and no one will say that, but I don't know how you can't reach that conclusion. Watch.
What do you think the future holds? Is it...
I don't know.
I mean, are they going to let Trump be president?
No, of course. I mean, look, if, they protested him, they called him names. He won anyway. They impeached him twice on ridiculous pretenses. They fabricated a lot about what happened on January 6th in order to impeach him again. It didn't work. He came back. Then they indicted him. It didn't work. He became more popular. Then they indicted him 3 more times. And every single time his popularity rose. So if you begin with criticism, then you go to protest, then you go to impeachment, now you go to indictment, and none of them work, what's next? I mean, graph it out, man. We're speeding toward assassination, obviously, and no one will say that, but I don't know how you can reach that conclusion. You know what I mean? Like, they have decided, permanent Washington, both parties have decided that there's something about Trump that's so threatening to them, they just can't have him. I mean, they're putting him on trial in March of next year in the J6 case, which basically consists of trying to send him to prison for the rest of his life for complaining about the last election. That's literally what it is. Again, if this were happening in Moldova, the State Department would issue an all-hands-on-deck order to let the world know this is not a legitimate government. And yet our government is doing it. It's like it's hard to overstate how bad this is. And I don't know where it's going, but there's a collision that's clearly imminent. And by the way, the president is senile in a way that's impossible to deny. Biden's not running the government, so I don't know. I've never been this worried about anything as I am about where this is going.
Sometimes when you find yourself in a perilous situation, you need the right guidance to turn things around. I had a similar experience when I lost 80 pounds using Gary Mascioni's program, Fat Loss for Life, a body transformation guide. It's not merely about shedding weight, it's about reversing your course when you're barreling towards a catastrophe. Take charge of your transformation by visiting Gary'sTraining.com and use code NNN for a 10% discount. A life-changing pivot could be just what you need right now. But that's not all. What makes Tucker's prediction even more harrowing is his additional warning about war with Russia. You heard that right, a war with Russia. Tucker claims that the U.S. might instigate this war to secure victory in the 2024 elections. He says they can't lose. They will do anything to win. So how do they do that? They're not going to do it with COVID again. They're going to go to war with Russia. Watch.
Here's my view of it. I think the lies are unsustainable. Lying is always unsustainable. You're always found out in the end, whether in your lifetime or posthumously. But lies are always revealed by their nature. And these lies are so big and so obvious and so stupid that it's going to be very clear to the majority of voters before the election that the Biden administration has no idea what it's doing, that Joe Biden is not running the government, and that it's not working at all. And I think by that point, we're going to have a real economic contraction. I think we're going to be in the teeth of a very tough recession, and that makes everything much more intense. And so if your goal is to maintain power, and if you think once you relinquish power, the problem with criminalizing politics is the people who do it imagine or know that it will be done to them. So once you start indicting your political opponents, you know that you have to win or else they're going to indict you if they win, right?
Right.
And so they can't lose. They will do anything to win. So how do they do that? They're not going to do COVID again. I know everyone on the right's afraid they're going to do COVID and mask mandate. They're not going to do that. They can't do that. If they've already been exposed, that won't work. There's going to be, no, what are they going to do? They're going to go to war with Russia. Is what they're going to do. There will be a hot war between the United States and Russia in the next year. And
really?
Yes, of course. They want it anyway. I don't think we'll win it, but that's a separate analysis. But I think it's a political matter. They need to declare war footing in order to assume war powers in order to win. I believe that. And I think the evidence suggests that's true. So if you're worried about our politics getting like even more vicious than it already is, and people being hurt in our politics, which is entirely possible, you should be worried about the prospect of an open war. We're already at war with Russia, of course. We're funding their enemies. So we're fighting Russia. But I mean, an open battle with Russia where we say we're at war with Russia. I think that could easily happen. I think we could Tonkin Gulf our way into it, where all of a sudden missiles land in Poland. The Russians did it. Our NATO ally has been attacked. We're going to war. I could see that happening very easily. So if you're worried about that, you need to put as much pressure as you possibly can on the Republican-held Senate to force a peace, which can be done. The United States could force a peace in Ukraine tonight. We're funding one side. There is no Ukrainian army outside of NATO. If NATO withdrew its support for Ukraine, Ukraine would crumble in a day. So we are the only power in the world that can bring both sides to the table to force a peace, which will be unsatisfactory as all forced peaces are. Like each side will give more than it wants, but that's the only option. Otherwise, I would bet my house on it. We are going to war with Russia. And of course, the stakes are everything, our life on the planet. I mean, these are the two biggest nuclear arsenals in the world facing off against each other. So
absolutely frightening. Let's be abundantly clear. This isn't a partisan issue. What happens today with Trump could very well happen tomorrow with someone else on either side of the political aisle. Tucker's analysis doesn't just signify a threat to one man, but represents an existential threat to the core principles of our republic and the future of this nation. In the words of Tucker himself, he's never been this worried about anything in his life, and that should awaken each and every one of us to the grave reality we face. Why? Because this is bigger than Trump. It's bigger than any one individual. This is about a precedent being set. The danger of saying that when political machinations fail, violence is the next step. Tucker's words are not something to brush off. They're something to contemplate deeply. The very fabric of our republic hangs in the balance. And this should concern every American, Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal. We're setting a precedent for political violence that could tarnish the face of American politics for generations to come. And Tucker Carlson isn't merely just speaking into the void. He's issuing a clarion call that should resonate with us all. And don't forget, Trump was the target of an actual assassination attempt in 2016. How much longer until history repeats itself? Not just with Trump, but with anyone who dares to challenge the status quo. Tucker Carlson isn't usually one for doomsday forecasts, but he concluded the podcast interview with a statement that every American should mull over. There is a collision that is clearly imminent. A collision between the frenzied hatred for a single man and the essence of what America stands for. Folks, it's time for a wake-up call. It's time to stop the speeding train before it derails entirely and takes our great republic along with it. If Tucker's right and these dire predictions come to pass, then God help us all. We must heed this warning before it's too late for the sake of our nation, our republic, and our collective future. The clock is ticking, America. Let's do the right thing before we find ourselves in a reality that we cannot reverse. So there you have it, America. We've laid it out for you. Tucker Carlson's revelations are not just a cause for concern. They're a call to action for every patriotic citizen. We're not talking about your run-of-the-mill political banter here. We're talking about the fundamental integrity of the United States of America, the prospect of a failed assassination potentially triggering violence beyond imagination, and even a war that could lead us into a future that nobody wants. If there was ever a time to stand up, pay attention, and take action, it's now. Don't brush this aside as mere speculation or conspiracy. This is the defining moment that tests the mettle of our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, the clock is ticking. We must act before the unthinkable becomes our irrevocable reality. Up next, Angie has some highlights from a tense exchange between CNN's Jake Tapper and KJP on Biden's age. Angie?
A new poll by the Associated Press Nork Center for Public Affairs Research shows that a staggering 77% of Americans believe President Joe Biden is too old to serve a second term. But even more alarming for the White House is that 69% of Democrats also hold this view. In an interview on The Lead with Jake Tapper, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre failed to defend Biden's energy and vitality, instead conceding that his wisdom and experience make up for his age. However, this only highlights the fact that Biden has been in office far too long. The American people are rightly concerned about Biden's age and stamina, but the administration is in denial. It's time for change before it's too late. Dive deeper, get the whole story by tapping the link in our bio. And now Gary has a report on how Trump's unexpected return is sending shockwaves across world capitals. Gary?
And now a special report you don't want to miss. We're talking about an earth-shattering topic, the impending return of Donald J. Trump and the international tremors that it's causing. Leaders from Tokyo to Paris and even in our own backyard in Canada are all bracing themselves for what could be a seismic shift in global politics. Wall Street Journal just dropped a bombshell. The world is contemplating a second Trump administration. Stick around because we're going to break down how Trump's likely return has global elites quaking in their boots. Plus, we'll be hearing from Viktor Orban, the president of Hungary, and even Trump himself. You'll want to hear every word, especially our final thought. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's dig into this explosive development. When Trump left office, many in the corporate media and their international counterparts exhaled a collective sigh of relief. But the calm might have been short-lived. You see, while the media has been busy sidelining Trump, painting him as a mere mugshot and an indicted former president, something else has been brewing. A sense of inevitability among world leaders that Trump could return to the highest office in the land. Wall Street Journal, not your average tabloid, mind you, published a piece indicating that allies and even adversaries are beginning to plan for Trump's comeback. They're looking at the man they love to hate, but can't ignore as a figure who can significantly reshape world politics again. And here's where the story takes a fascinating twist. While the domestic debates rage over Trump's past and future, globally, the stakes are much higher. The liberals want you to believe that Russia and China viewed Trump as a pawn, but Wall Street Journal reports that nationalist and populist politicians worldwide are actually rooting for Trump's return. It's not just us saying it. World leaders are essentially admitting that they need Trump. Viktor Orban, Hungary's president, echoes this sentiment. Let's play a clip from his interview with Tucker Carlson. Watch.
So if you were in charge of NATO, if you were, say, Joe Biden, what would your next move be in the war in Ukraine? What would you do?
Peace, immediately. Call back Trump. That's the only way out.
Call back Trump.
Call back Trump. Because, you can criticize him for many reasons. I understand all the discussion, but the best foreign policy of the recent several decades belonged to him. He did not initiate any new war.
Yes.
He treated nicely the North Koreans and Russia, even the Chinese. He delivered a policy which was the best one for Middle East, Abraham Accords.
Yes.
So that was a very good foreign policy. He's criticized that he's not educated enough to understand the world. This is not the case. Facts count, and his foreign policy was the best one for the world in the last several decades I have seen. And if he would have been the president at the moment of the Russian invasion started, no, it would be not possible to do that by the Russians. So Trump is the man who can save the Western world and probably the human beings in the globe as well.
Wow. Orban's words could not be clearer. He calls for peace immediately, attributing the best foreign policy in recent decades to Trump. Not to Obama, not to Bush, but to Trump. He even goes as far as to say that Russia would have never invaded Ukraine if Trump were in office. That's a bold statement. Now let's compare this to Trump's take on the global situation. Watch.
This month marks the 2-year anniversary of the most embarrassing event in the history of our country, Joe Biden's disastrous surrender in Afghanistan. This was one of the horrible, horrible events in our country's past, leaving thousands and thousands of Americans behind. We don't even know the number. 13 dead warriors, hundreds of civilians killed and horribly wounded, including soldiers beyond the 13 soldiers that were so badly wounded. And $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment anywhere in the world abandoned, handed over, call it what you want, to the Taliban. It was a surrender. Never before has there been such an egregious display of incompetence and weakness on the world stage. You don't bring the soldiers out first, you bring the soldiers out last, Joe. Ever since that horrendous event, the United States and the world have been paying a very steep price. Russia took one look at Joe Biden's impotent and pathetic performance, and decided to invade Ukraine. He would have never done it while I was president. Wouldn't have happened. China is now threatening Taiwan. Iran is on the cusp of a nuclear bomb, and American allies around the globe are doubting American strength and cozying up to the Chinese Communist Party. It's impossible to overstate the scale of the military, diplomatic, and geopolitical disaster created by Joe Biden's Afghanistan catastrophe. History will be very harsh on Crooked Joe for a lot of reasons, but this is one of them. What is needed now is a decisive and rapid return to unquestioned, undoubted, and unrivaled American power and prestige. We had that when I was president. When I was president, we were the most respected country in the world, more respected than America ever was. Under my leadership, we were getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity and strength. We were strong and powerful, and everybody respected us, including the Taliban. When I return to the Oval Office, you will once again have an America that is feared by our enemies, trusted by our allies, and respected by everyone. All over the world, no matter who it is, they're going to respect us again. They will respect us again, and we will make America great again, and we will also put America first. We will restore peace through strength. That's the way it has to be. Thank you very much.
God bless. Trump reminds us of his stance on peace through strength and points to Biden's catastrophic failure in Afghanistan as the root cause of our current international debacle. Think about it, folks. Biden's mess-ups have caused ripple effects across the world, eroding our allies' trust and emboldening our adversaries. And speaking of ripple effects, our financial future is also at stake. Look at the decline of the U.S. dollar, down 85% since the 70s. Now the government's printing money like it's going out of style, just like Biden's failed policies. Secure your assets with noble gold investments, just like Trump stabilized America on the world stage. Gold can be your stable asset against inflation. Plus, they are giving away 24-karat quarter-ounce gold standard coin for free. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com or give them a call at 877-646-5347. Don't wait. Secure your financial future right now. Now, shifting back to the focus of our northern neighbors, Canada is apparently so rattled by the potential of a Trump return that they're preparing a game plan. Their Foreign Affairs Minister, Melanie Joly, talks of a far-right authoritarian shift, their words, not mine, that could occur after the elections. Now, what's she really saying here? She's signaling that they're preparing for a return of strong conservative leadership, not just in the U.S., but globally. And the term far-right these days is liberally applied to anyone who doesn't toe the line of the extremist leftist ideologies. But what Canada is really afraid of is a resurgence of freedom-loving conservatives who reject globalist and socialist agendas. They're watching the rise of conservatism not as a U.S. phenomenon, but as a global shift, and they're terrified. They're working with mayors, provincial premiers, business communities, unions, you name it. Canada is high alert for the Trump effect. Now, bringing this back home, if the world is so anxious about Trump's return, what does it say about the Biden administration? It's a glaring admission that Biden's policies are failing not just America, but the entire globe. The world leaders who were initially happy to see Biden take the reins are now faced with the harsh reality. Whether it's the Russian invasion of Ukraine or China's raising threat to Taiwan, Biden's weak stance is leading us down a precarious path, a path that only Trump's strong leadership can correct. Trump's foreign policy had substance. The Abraham Accords, North Korea, and even his dealings with Russia and China were executed with purpose, peace, through strength. Trump understands that you don't gain respect through appeasement, but through showing your might, your resolve, and your unwillingness to back down from principles. So why does this matter to you, the American people? It matters because the return of Trump is not just a national conversation, it's a global imperative. World leaders, whether they admit it or not, know that strong American leadership stabilizes international relations. A world on tenterhooks, awaiting Trump's return speaks volumes about the failure of the Biden administration. The world isn't just preparing for a Trump comeback. They are yearning for it. They're yearning for a leader who can restore peace, order, and most importantly, respect for America on the global stage. If you care about America's role in the world, if you care about a future where our nation is respected and feared by enemies and trusted by allies, then you too should be eagerly awaiting the return of Donald J. Trump. America and the world need him now more than ever. Ain't that the truth? Now, jumping to the topic of debates, the moderators for the second GOP showdown have now been revealed. Angie, what can you tell us?
The countdown is on for the pivotal second 2024 Republican presidential primary debate, and Fox News Media has just revealed the powerhouse trio who will moderate: Stuart Varney, Dana Perino, and Ilya Calderon. Make no mistake, this electrifying clash between Republican contenders vying to unseat Joe Biden will be a spine-tingling moment in the 2024 election saga. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Library will play host to this historic night on September 27th, with Fox, FBN, and Univision airing the proceedings. Fox News Audio will provide immediate and critical analysis, while digital audiences can catch extensive coverage through Univision's website. Who will rise to the occasion and carry the Republican torch forward? Dive deeper, get the whole story by tapping the link in our bio. Gary has a report on Trump's latest video that's causing quite a stir, scorching political enemies. Gary?
And now we're diving headfirst into a story that's so explosive it's lighting up the internet like a 4th of July fireworks display. We're talking about President Trump, who's just unleashed a firestorm on Truth Social, and trust us, he's not holding back. In fact, you might say he's swinging sledgehammers when others are playing with pebbles. He's tackling everything: the crumbling rule of law, weaponization of our justice system, and the sinister moves from the Biden administration. But here's the kicker. He's not just pointing out the problems, he's laying out the solutions. It's a message of hope, a message of resilience, and a rallying cry for every American patriot. You don't want to miss what he has to say about election 2024, so stick around, because by the end of the special report, you're going to see things in a very different way like you've never seen before. And our final thought, it's something so groundbreaking you'll regret if you miss it. Kicking off tonight's special report, we have a message from President Trump that's nothing short of a wake-up call for every American under the Biden administration. He claims the rule of law is crumbling and our justice system is being hijacked for political vendettas. But Trump is far from defeated. His message? Do not lose hope. What he reveals next is a roadmap for taking back power and saving the nation we love. If there's one video you can't afford to miss, it's this one. Watch.
Under crooked Joe Biden, our country is going through some very difficult times. The rule of law is being destroyed, and the justice system is being wielded as a weapon against Joe Biden's political opponents, me primarily. Over the past few months, I've heard from countless Americans who are deeply disturbed by these appalling political persecutions and attacks. I want to say to you today, do not despair and do not lose hope. Every injustice they throw at us, every hoax, witch hunt, and abuse of power must only harden our will and steel to resolve to save our nation. This is the nation we love. We will save it. We will not let this happen. Our vindication will come on Election Day 2024. We will take back power from these lunatic, sick, and sinister people. We will expose their corruption for history to see, and justice will be done. So keep on fighting and turn all of our frustration and your frustration and energy into determination to achieve an epic victory in November 2024. Nothing is more important. This will be the most important election in the history of our country. Our country is going bad. Our country is going into a communist state, and we can't let that happen. We will make America great again. We cannot let anything happen to this precious country of ours. Thank you very much.
And coming up next, you won't believe what President Trump has to say about the indictments and lawsuits against them. Are they just legal actions, or is there something far more insidious at play? Trump tears the veil off the so-called justice system, revealing the forces he claims are really pulling the strings. This is a must-see for anyone who cares about the future of our country. Watch.
Please realize that all of these indictments and lawsuits against me are conceived and run by radical left Democrats, the same lunatics that are destroying our country. The indictments and litigation are highly partisan election interference. Now we're in a partially corrupt system of justice. We call it a system of justice. It's really a system of injustice, filled up with Marxists, fascists, communists, and radical left Democrats. But also, it has great American patriots who see what is happening to our country, who see that our country is going bad, it's going communist, and they're not going to allow it to continue to happen. They're going to stop it. These are the most important people right now in the history of our country. We will win. We will bring back America. We will make America great again. Thank you very much.
The former president highlights that indictments against him are not just legal moves, they're political chess pieces manipulated by the radical left. And speaking of manipulation, do you know 74% of adults in the U.S. are overweight? Just like how the justice system is manipulated, your health can be too. This is why I recommend an amazing supplement that naturally supports weight loss. Its key ingredient, CLA, helps break down fat. Take control of your health just like you would take control of your vote. Order today at trimwithgary.com. Now up next, President Trump drops a bombshell. Do you think the indictments and lawsuits against him are coincidental? Think again. Trump exposes what he calls the real agenda behind these actions and how it's tied to the very institutions meant to uphold law and order. Plus, he has a stark warning for Democrats. Watch.
These indictments and lawsuits are all part of my political opponent's campaign plan. It is election interference, and they are going to use the DOJ and the FBI to help them, which is totally illegal. It's what happened before. You remember the FBI and Twitter? They call it Twitter files, and so much more. Crooked Joe pushed this litigation hard to get it done. He wanted to get it done and get it done as fast because he can't put two sentences together. This is a new low in presidential politics. To the Democrats, I say, be careful what you wish for.
Next, President Trump reveals a question that everyone, of course, has heard about these indictments. Are they really about justice, or are they, as Trump claims, nothing more than campaign contributions to Joe Biden and his circle? You'll be stunned what the former president is saying about who's really behind these legal actions. And if you're a Democrat, his warning to you is crystal clear. Watch.
These crazy indictments against me should be viewed as campaign contributions to crooked Joe Biden and his radical left thugs. This will be their updated form of cheating and election interference. Remember, these are Biden indictments. They're not pure and simple. They're not coming down from heaven. These are indictments made up by Joe Biden and the people that surround him, mostly the people that surround him. He's got a bad group. They're thugs. They're radical left fascists. They're Marxists. They're communists. They have the worst people. But these people made these indictments. So when they say, oh, Donald Trump is going to court, no. We're going to court to fight a crooked system, a corrupt system. And Democrats better be careful what they wish for, because this kind of thing can happen to them, and it can happen very quickly. Thank you very much.
Next in our special report, President Trump tackles an issue that's been the elephant in the room for 3 years, the 2020 election. He says the truth will have its day in court finally, but who's really afraid of revisiting this contentious event? Well, according to Trump, it's not just Democrats. Get ready to hear why he thinks the fight for election integrity is far from over. Watch.
For the first time in 3 years, brave American patriots will be able, in court, to show how the presidential election of 2020 was rigged and stolen. For those rhinos, radical left Democrats, communists, Marxists, fascists, and others who say, don't look back, look forward. They either do not want to reveal the answers because they got away with murder, or are fools and cowards because we know that if we don't find out the reason, it could happen again, and we're not going to let it happen again. All of the fraud, irregularities, and cheating, we cannot ever let a thing like that take place in the United States of America. Thank you very much.
And coming up, President Trump delivers a dire warning about the future of our nation. He's calling it a Department of Injustice, and he's not mincing words about where he thinks our country's headed if we don't act fast. Do you worry about the integrity of future elections? Then you can't afford what Trump has to say about the 2024 election. His message is not just a cautionary tale, it's a call to action. Watch.
We have a Department of Injustice rigging the election for crooked Joe Biden. Unless it is quickly stopped, all future elections will follow the same path. Our country is heading down a very, very dangerous road, and it has to stop. These are very dishonest people we're dealing with. We have to make our country great again. And if our elections are going to be rigged, or if they're going to use weaponization on elections, it's going to be very tough to make it great. We are a nation in decline. We are a nation that is failing, but we will turn it around very quickly. The election of 2024 is the most important election in the history of our country. We have to win, or we won't have a country left. Thank you very much.
Next, President Trump zeroes in on the state that left many scratching their heads, Georgia. He won it easily in 2016 and claims to have shattered voting records in 2020. So how did he end up losing? Well, Trump has some questions that demand answers. This is a segment that you don't want to skip if you've ever questioned the Georgia election results. Watch.
I easily won the great state of Georgia in 2016, did a fantastic job as president for Georgia and the entire USA, received 10 million more votes than I got nationwide in 2016, got by far the most votes in history for a sitting president, but shockingly lost Georgia. All this despite winning nearby Alabama and South Carolina in record-setting landslides. Why did Georgia officials agree to sign that horrible one-sided consent decree? Nobody to this day has figured that out. Does anybody really believe I lost Georgia? Because I don't.
Don't go anywhere, because what you're about to hear is explosive. President Trump gives a shout out to a Georgia state senator who's standing up to the radical left. But he doesn't stop there. He's calling out specific names and delivering a stinging rebuke to those he believes are hurting not just Georgia, but America at large. If you care about justice and the future of our nation, you don't want to miss this.
Highly respected Georgia State Senator Colton Moore deserves thanks and congratulations of everyone for having the courage and conviction to fight the radical left lunatics who are so badly hurting the great state of Georgia and, frankly, the USA itself. Failed DA Fani Willis, who has allowed Atlanta and Fulton County to become a record-setting murder and violent crime war zone with almost no retribution for those murderers, shockingly indicted your favorite president, me, for a perfect phone call. She is very bad for America. She is very bad for Georgia. And the bottom line is we're going to win. We're going to turn our country around. I want to thank the great people of Georgia for putting up with this crap. Thank you very much.
He doesn't hold back, does he? Now, coming up, a rallying cry from the president that every Republican needs to hear. He's urging GOP district attorneys and attorney generals to pay close attention to what's happening to him. Why? Because according to Trump, the weaponization of justice is something we've never seen before. If you're a Republican or even a concerned American, you don't want to miss this urgent call to action. Watch.
I hope that Republican district attorneys and attorney generals throughout the country are closely watching the tremendous weaponization of justice that is being utilized against me. There's never been anything like it. But you ought to watch. And frankly, it's an eye for an eye, or it's fight fire with fire. What they're doing to our country is amazing. So Republicans, I hope you're watching.
I hope they're paying attention, too. Now stay with us, because what President Trump reveals next is nothing short of alarming. He's declaring that America is on the brink of becoming a banana republic. And he's pointing out the exact cause. Are we truly seeing the darkest days in the life of America? If you're concerned about the direction this country is taking, you want to hear Trump's pledge to turn it around. Watch.
America is becoming a banana republic. That's what happens when you indict and prosecute your political opponent. These are dark days in the life of America, but we're going to turn it around and make our country great again.
Now, in a moment, we'll hear President Trump's closing remarks that are so profound they could very well redefine patriotism for a generation. He's reminding us that the American spirit isn't just a thing of the past. It's alive and well embedded in the heroes among us and the heroes who came before us, from George Washington to today's first responders. Trump tells us these icons of courage and sacrifice aren't just figures in a history book. They're the embodiment of American values. And if you've ever questioned what this country stands for, what you'll hear next will not only answer that, but inspire you to be part of America's great story. Watch.
Every young American deserves to know that they are the heirs to an incredible history given to us by a legion of true American heroes. Individuals like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Betsy Ross, Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, Harriet Tubman, Susan B. Anthony, Teddy Roosevelt, Generals George Patton, Douglas MacArthur, we could use them now, and countless other legends, patriots, and giants of American history. Yet we are also a people whose heroes lived not only in the past, but all around us today, including the men and women of the United States military, our law enforcement, and our first responders, who are all willing to lay down their lives so that we can have safety, peace, freedom, and life. The stories of our great American heroes remind us what our country is all about and how each one is capable of achieving this great, great thing that we all want to do. We want to have an incredible, successful life. We want to be also great patriots and strength for our nations. Our heroes inspire us to make America great again. We will give every young American the chance to know our remarkable heroes, to love this country, and to learn that the story of America unites us and makes us stronger and free. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, if tonight's series of messages from Donald Trump doesn't shake you to your core, then you're not paying attention. We're talking about a justice system that's been hijacked, a nation that's on the brink, and a future election that could very well be the last fair one we ever have. Trump isn't just fighting for himself, he's fighting for all of us. He's fighting for the very essence of America. This is about the sanctity of our elections, the integrity of our justice system, and the future of our republic. We're at a crossroads, and the decisions we make today will echo throughout history. Dismiss this message at your own peril, because the weaponization of justice, erosion of our freedoms, and distortion of our republic isn't just Trump's fight, it's America's fight. If we don't stand up now, who will? The time for action, ladies and gentlemen, is right now. In alarming news, a news crew robbed at gunpoint in Chicago, or some people call Chirac. Angie, what are the details?
A Chicago news crew investigating a string of robberies became the latest victims of violent crime. In a brazen attack, 3 armed men wearing ski masks ambushed and stole their television cameras and personal belongings in Westtown during the early hours of the morning. Despite the constant presence of law enforcement agencies in the area, criminals continue to run rampant. This incident highlights the other failure of the Democrats' policies on crime and law enforcement, including President Biden's weak and ineffective approach to criminal justice. With no progress made towards tackling the ongoing crime wave, it's clear that Americans cannot rely on this administration to prioritize the safety and security of its citizens. Dive deeper, get the whole story by tapping the link in our bio. Up next, Gary delves into a largely unspoken issue, the freezing McConnell problem. What's it all about, Gary?
Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be shocked and maybe a little outraged. Tonight we have a tale that's shaking up the very foundations of American governance. You've known him for years, but do you really know him? Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, twice now, frozen in time, but not in a way anyone wants. Forget about any sci-fi movie. This is a real-life drama unfolding before our very eyes. And trust me, you don't want to miss our final thought, because it's going to force you to question everything you've been told about leadership in Washington. Stick around. This special report is going to be a roller coaster, one with twists and turns that just might define the future of the Republican Party and of this nation. We're looking at a developing situation, one that we can't ignore, even if we wanted to. You know him, and you may not love him. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, twice now, frozen like a computer that needs a hard reboot. Yes, if you haven't seen it, here it is.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026? All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator Benny.
Caught on camera, the man loses his train of thought in public under what should be the simplest of questions. But if you think that's an isolated incident, think again. Watch.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're on a path to finishing the NDAA this week. It's been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
Okay, Mitch.
You see it, I see it, and guess what? It's not getting any better. It's like someone has hit pause. Now, we all age, our bodies change, and while we can't restart ourselves like a glitching computer, there are ways to mitigate the aging process. So here's a life pro tip. If you're losing your edge or feeling like you're missing a step, you can fight back. I recommend a scientifically backed product filled with ingredients like MyHMB, creatine, and vitamin D3. So why just age when you can age and gain? Grab your own batch at gainwithgary.com and take 41% off the regular price. Take control of your life, not just your years. Now, this isn't just an old man showing his age. It's about an establishment figure who's been stonewalling the American people. A man who historically has been less of a leader and more of a gatekeeper for the powers that be. And these incidents, they're chinks in the armor, revealing the frailty not just of the man, but of the establishment edifice he represents. Mitch McConnell isn't your local grandpa who forgets where he left his glasses. He's a person vested with immense power. And that power, folks, is showing some serious cracks. 2 times now, he's shown signs that he's not cognitively there. This isn't some deep fake, okay? It's on video for the world to see. Let's not forget McConnell was hospitalized earlier this year. Concussion, fractured ribs. It's more than a senior moment. It's a flashing red warning sign. Can we trust a man with this kind of health record to be at the forefront of crucial, often life-altering decisions? What gets me, folks, is the secrecy. The secrecy. There are shadows all around this. No medical reports, no full disclosure. It's like a bad magic trick, and we're all supposed to pretend that we didn't see the rabbit come out of the hat. And let's be real, McConnell has been at odds with the MAGA movement, with grassroots conservatives. He's been the old guard, a classic neocon, often frustrating the will of the people to serve the globalist agenda. He's more interested in wheeling and dealing with the elites than representing everyday Americans like you and me. As you saw, his team quickly whisked him away time and time again. Looks like a cover-up. That's not what this country needs. It's the opposite of the transparency we deserve. We're not a James Bond movie. We don't need mystery. We need clarity. And McConnell's giving us neither. And what does this say about the GOP's future? If one of the so-called leaders is unable to answer a straightforward question without freezing up, where does that leave us? It leaves us asking who's really pulling the strings behind the curtain. The gatekeepers in Washington may tell you that McConnell is a must-have, an invaluable asset. To that I say, how valuable is a leader who can't lead? How much stock do we put in a man who stands as a roadblock to progress, who pushes back against change because it's uncomfortable for him and his globalist buddies? My friends, this isn't about ageism. It's about capability. It's about whether a man clearly struggling with the rigors of public life should occupy one of the most powerful seats in our government. It's time for some house cleaning, and maybe that starts at the very top of the GOP Senate leadership. Okay, no one is suggesting Mitch McConnell hasn't had an influential role, but influence isn't always positive, especially when it serves the interests of the global elite over those hardworking Americans. And now even that influence is under scrutiny. The red flags are there, and they're getting redder by the day. So we have to ask the uncomfortable question, is Mitch McConnell still fit to serve? Not just physically, but ideologically. Does he represent your values? Or does he represent the Washington establishment that's more interested in maintaining its own power than serving you? Because at the end of the day, it's not just about Mitch McConnell. It's about the Republican Party, our values, and the future of this great nation. And that, my friends, is something too important to leave to a man who's becoming more of a question mark than an exclamation point. That's a discussion we need to be having, not just within the GOP, but across this entire nation. This isn't a soap opera. It's our reality, and it's high time that we face it head on. So here's the harsh reality, folks. Leadership isn't just about holding on to power. It's like some old miser hoarding gold. It's about the vision, the will, and yes, the physical and mental capability to steer this great nation. McConnell's recent cognitive lapses aren't just personal health issues. They're national security concerns. If he's the man supposedly blocking or enabling legislation, what happens if he freezes up during a crucial vote? What happens if he's not fit to make the call? This is beyond partisan politics. This is about the health and future of our republic. It's time to face the uncomfortable questions that we've been avoiding. We can't afford to have leaders who are more liabilities than assets. Mitch McConnell's time may very well be up. And if that's the case, he needs to step aside for the good of America. And the clock is ticking. President Biden raises eyebrows, joking about McConnell's recent health scare. Angie, what have you got?
President Biden has shown his true colors once again, this time mocking Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's health scare during a White House briefing. Despite Biden's own health problems and inappropriate behavior, he thought it was appropriate to make light of a potentially serious issue affecting a prominent political figure. McConnell, who froze during a press conference for 10 seconds, has suffered 2 health scares in recent weeks, leaving many questioning his fitness for office. Meanwhile, a shocking poll revealed that 77% of Americans believe Biden himself is too old to be effective for another 4 years in office, with even 69% of Democrats agreeing. American voters are growing increasingly concerned about a president who may not be up for the job. It is time for Biden to step down and make room for someone who can lead our great nation. Dive deeper, get the whole story by tapping the link in our bio. A surgeon's analysis is unmasking what he calls Biden's face of deception. Gary, what's the story?
Ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves for what you're about to hear tonight, because it's not for the faint of heart. Are you troubled by skyrocketing inflation? Concerned about a porous border that's about as secure as a paper umbrella in a hurricane? Well, tonight we're going to introduce you to a story that makes those issues seem almost trifling by comparison. We're diving into the deeply alarming realm of President Biden's priorities, and trust me, it's not what you think. In an era where image has seemingly triumphed over substance, we're taking you inside a story that reveals not just the president's unique brand of vanity, but also exposes a disturbing imbalance in leadership focus. This one's a doozy, folks. So don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss this. Now, you can't make this stuff up. While Americans grapple with the burden of skyrocketing inflation, and while our southern border resembles a sieve more than a barrier, it appears President Biden has other priorities, like maybe Botox priorities. And let me be clear, this isn't hearsay or gossip. This is an analysis from a top California plastic surgeon, Dr. Gary Modicki. You've heard of him. He's known for evaluating various celebrities' alleged plastic surgeries. The guy's an expert on faces, perhaps more so than anyone in the Biden administration is an expert on foreign policy, but I digress. Now, this doctor has a theory. Let's take a look at it.
President Biden's colleagues are now accusing him of having too much plastic surgery. Do we think he's had plastic surgery? President Biden is now 82 years old. I think he's definitely had some plastic surgery. And I don't think it's necessarily recent plastic surgery. I think he's had procedures throughout the years. And he has some of the telltale signs of plastic surgery. Starting with his hair, we can see that even 30, 40 years ago, his hair was thinning quite dramatically. And then we see some signs that he underwent a hair transplant procedure. And probably one of the older techniques, because you can see some of the unnaturalness to the hairline and the way that the hair was grafted. Secondly, if we look at his brow, there's some telltale signs there, particularly if we think about other actors like like Burt Reynolds or singers like Kenny Rogers, he has that same look to the upper brow and upper eyes where there's an unnatural appearance to the lines. If we look at his brow lines on the side, normally they would come like this and come down slightly, but on him we see they're turned up and going this way. So at some point he definitely had some sort of a brow lift procedure. And in men, as I always say, it can make them look feminine or a little odd in the brow. And we see that in President Biden. Secondly, he has some telltale signs of a facelift. He definitely has slight pixie ears. We see again the pull on the side of his face. Also, when he's turned to the side in certain angles, we can see some of the signs near the ear and in the neck here where it looks like at some point he had a facelift. Next, if we go to his eyes, we do see throughout the years that he had some prominent eye bags where he was looking tired. Then we see them kind of go away, come back a little, go away. Also, you can see a change in his eye shape, possibly a little bit to the brow, but also the upper eyes and under his eyes, we can see again the signs that a lower blepharoplasty was done because his eye shape is quite dramatically changed here, as well a little bit of bunching of the skin there. Then I think throughout the years he's probably done touch-ups with Botox and fillers, but overall I think he's had a significant amount of plastic surgery throughout his career.
He suggests that President Biden spent, hold on to your seats, up to $100,000 on various plastic surgery procedures. He specifically points to the unnaturalness of Biden's hairline, the grafting techniques as giveaways. These aren't signs of good genes or signs of a good surgeon, but here's the kicker. If you take a good look, you can observe unnatural features like he mentioned pixie ears, a common telltale sign of facelifts and brow lifts. Now let's move on to a clip of Representative Greg Murphy talking to Maria Bartiromo. Watch.
Let's look at Joe. He's had so much plastic surgery, so much Botox, so much filler. That's on the outside. And Maria, you know, I deal in a surgical field that has a lot of older patients, and so I have seen patients through the year decline mentally. It's just a fact. It's what happens. And the fact that these outbursts now are happening, which again, he would remember he was going to be the most gentle and gentile president ever. The fact that he's having these labile emotional swings, outbursts to his staff, really speaks. A form of dementia has that. You can't control your emotions, or if you can't get the words out you want to, become very frustrated. This is all a picture of this. I mean, come on, let's just be honest. The guy's not fit for office. He never was fit for office, and he surely would not be fit for another 5 years.
So you heard that right. Dr. Murphy, also a practicing physician, echoed these concerns about Biden's altered appearance. He raised the alarm bells not just about the president's curious lack of wrinkles, but also his mental aging. Now you might say, who cares if a president, or anyone for that matter, wants to take a few years off their face? Fair point. But consider this. If President Biden has the time and resources to focus on superficial aesthetics, what does it say about his priorities as the leader of the free world? When the ship is sinking, you don't worry about rearranging the deck chairs, or in this case, lifting the brows. And let's not lose sight of our priorities, because in a world as unpredictable as ours, that's a luxury we can't afford. Whether it's political chaos or looming economic crisis, we have to be prepared. And that's why My Patriot Supply is offering a rare 25% discount on their 3-month emergency food kit. Look, we don't know what the president's next facelift will do to our country, but we can take steps to protect our own households. 1 kit per person is all you need to start. Visit preparewithgary.com right now for a 25% discount, because sometimes reality needs no filter. Now, back to that 6-figure price tag. The doctor estimates that Biden's procedures would have cost around $100,000 in today's dollars, especially if done in a high-end location like Beverly Hills. And that's a significant chunk of change. Maybe instead of making over his face, Biden should consider making over his policies, right? We're talking about a president who's already facing questions about mental acuity, so if the outside is getting a refresh, what's happening on the inside? Cognitive tests, anyone? The issue here is not about vanity. I think we can all agree that we're not electing a president based on their cheekbones, but it does beg the question. If the president is willing to spend so much on external appearances, how much attention is he paying to the substantive matters that truly count? His job isn't to be a poster boy for anti-aging. It's to govern a nation facing complex issues. Let's not forget, the doctor wasn't the first to point out Biden's aesthetic embellishments. The Daily Mail interviewed surgeons as far back as 2019 who claimed Biden began to look noticeably different during the 2008 campaign. So this isn't new, but it does make you wonder what else is being tucked, lifted, or altered behind closed doors. So ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with this to ponder. In a world where the stage is often more influential than the script, How far will someone go to preserve their image, and what does that say about the state of our union? I'll delve into that in our final thoughts, so don't go anywhere. Yes, we've unmasked a cosmetic tale tonight, but let's not be blind to the real narrative here. This isn't just about one man's vanity. It's about a troubling state of priorities at the helm of our great nation. While we deal with an open border, inflation, and a shaky foreign policy, our president seems preoccupied with facial fine-tuning. It's not just about whether Biden has had work done on his face. It's about where his focus is, where his resources are being invested. The president's actions are a mirror of his priorities, and what we're seeing reflected back is a focus on the superficial, not the substantive. In a time when the very fabric of our society seems to be fraying at the edges, we need a leader who is more concerned with mending the tear rather than looking good in the reflection. Remember, appearances can be deceiving, but priorities never lie. Dick's Sporting Goods grappling with an organized retail crime crisis. What's going on, Ange?
The Biden administration's failure to get tough on retail crime has been blamed for an epidemic of theft that is causing sportswear retailer Dick's Sporting Goods to suffer huge losses, with profits down 23% and sales up only 3.6%. Dick's CEO Lauren Hobart stated that the loss of inventory was down to organized retail crime. The National Retail Federation estimated that retail losses due to theft were $94.5 billion. While retail crimes have surged by 120%, loose prosecution standards have emboldened criminals, leading Americans to criticize the Biden administration for ineffective attitudes. Even Target has been suffering unabated theft, with sales dropping for the first time in 6 years. Is it time for the Biden administration to take criminal prosecution standards seriously before American businesses collapse? Dive deeper, get the whole story by tapping the link in our bio. That wraps up all the news I have for this edition of N3 Prime Time. Back to Gary with your comments from the comment section.
And now we're diving into the comments section where your voice, the real voice of America, takes center stage because, let's be real, you've got opinions and we want to hear them. Tonight's hot topic is Biden's doomsday tape ready for public reveal. That's right, the tape that could unravel everything we know about this administration. And it seems that you've had a lot to say about this, so let's get right into it. First up, we have Ratchet Check, who says, please end his chances. We won't survive any more Biden. Oh, yes, you are singing my song here. It's like we're in a car with no brakes, barreling down a steep hill, and the only way out is to take control back from the reckless driver. Next, we have a comment from L.D. Tush. Everything he did in the past 3 years should be reversed back to Trump's policies, zero tolerance for corruption in the White House. Now, there's an idea. Zero tolerance for corruption. A notion so foreign to today's Washington that it practically sounds revolutionary. Andrew weighs in with treason was once punishable by death. I'm not suggesting we go that route, but Biden should be impeached, removed from the position of the presidency. That will be a great start to help rebuild the trust and integrity of our republic, and we still need to clean house. Andrew, you are onto something. Of course, we don't have to go medieval here, but a little accountability, maybe even an impeachment, would go a long way. Don't you think? Now, B. Joy adds a crucial perspective. If one goes unpunished, it encourages others to repeat the crime. Tough love to keep our republic. You hear that, Washington? Tough love. Because if you keep letting the rule breakers get away with it, they're just going to keep breaking the rules. And finally, My Little World drops a bombshell. Once a traitor, always a traitor, and his family too. Impeach him. Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? If you've got a rotten core at the top, it's time to prune the whole tree. So, America, it's clear. You're done with excuses and delays. You want action, and you want it now. So we're going to close the curtain on today's comment section, but keep those comments coming. And, of course, we'll be back with your thoughts soon enough. Now on to our next segment. You're going to find out who we're looking at. In this segment of Looking at You, we're focusing our gaze squarely on the residents of Chicago, a city with deep roots and a litany of problems from corruption to skyrocketing crime rates. Yet, among these problems, a new issue has arisen that has residents raising their voices, and frankly, they have had enough, and they have a right to be heard. Watch.
I don't want them there. Take them someplace else or send them back to Venezuela. I don't care where they go. This is wrong. You got 73% of the people homeless in this city are black people. What have you done for them?
There were lots of fireworks over the migrants moving into the Lakeshore Hotel for 6 months, where 300 can be housed. Also, the city says it's a fluid situation, and it will need to revisit that timeline.
So let's decode this, shall we? Here we have an American citizen, a resident of a struggling city, asking for the concerns to be taken seriously, mentioning the 73% of Chicago's population who identify as black and already facing their own set of challenges, only now to watch as resources are allocated to migrants. Let's be clear, this is not about wanting to help people in need. It's about the prioritization of issues. When you have a city rife with crime, social discord, and racial tension, is housing migrants in a luxury hotel really the top priority? The city officials say it's a fluid situation, which basically means they don't know what they're doing. It's policymaking on the fly with zero regard for long-term consequences or the wishes of existing residents. So we're looking at you, residents of Chicago, because it seems like your city leaders have their priorities misplaced. Is it any wonder why so many people are deeply unhappy with how things are going? So what do you think, Chicago residents? Is this what you signed up for, or is it time to start demanding that your city's leadership actually starts listening to you? Let us know, because we're definitely listening, even if your city isn't. Tonight we've examined stories that should resonate deeply with every American, regardless of political leanings. Tucker Carlson's alarm bells about the future of our nation and the risks of political vendettas remind us of the fragility of our republic. His warnings shouldn't be taken lightly. They should make us all question, what has our country become? And what are we speeding towards? We've heard how world leaders are preparing for a potential Trump return, shedding light on a possible global lack of confidence in Biden's administration. Think about that. If allies and rivals are bracing for a far-right shift, what does it say about America's standing in the world? Trump himself has pointed to the decay of the rule of law, alleging politically motivated actions against him. Like him or not, his message raises a crucial question. Are we still the land of the free if our justice system can be weaponized for political gains? And Mitch McConnell's recent displays of cognitive decline cast doubts on whether he's fit to lead, especially at a time when strong leadership is direly needed. And finally, President Biden's alleged plastic surgery has raised another question. Are our leaders more focused on appearances than fixing the deep-rooted issues that plague our nation? These stories are not just news, they're a mirror reflecting the state of our republic. If you find that reflection unsettling, it's time to question not just the people in power, but the direction that we're all headed. The stakes have never been higher, and neither has the urgency for America to wake up. And that wraps up our in-depth discussion for tonight. A special shout out to Angie for delivering those critical news briefs. Your insights are invaluable. And to all of you participating in the live chat, thank you for making this a dynamic conversation. Your voices and opinions matter, especially in times like these when our republic and core values are under scrutiny. Let's talk about something just as fundamental as the stories that we've covered tonight, your financial security in a world where political landscapes shift as fast as sand in a storm. Investing in something as solid as gold can be your fortress. Just as we question the stability of our institutions, many question the stability of our currency. And since the 70s, the U.S. has lost 85% of its value, the dollar, after detaching from gold. With inflation lurking like an unwelcome shadow, gold remains a steadfast guardian of value. Our trusted sponsor, Noble Gold Investments, is offering a free quarter-ounce gold standard coin for those who invest. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com or call 877-646-5347. It's the gold company I trust when the stability of our nation seems uncertain. So thank you for joining us on this edition of N3 Primetime. You're not just viewers, you're patriots committed to keeping America great. If you found value in tonight's show, spread the word, share the link, and let's build a community that turns the tide. I'm Gary Franchi. Remember, my goal is not to make you a follower, but to empower you to become a leader among your community. Good night, America.